Yeah, I follow the line of thinking, and I do really follow it personally. I think along same lines, but I'm going to put you something that, let's say, would come from a new atheist, that is something that people who want to experience the world as meaningful or as purposeful have to contend with at some point, and it's the question of miracles. So we have this whole way of looking at religion as either literally true or symbolically true, right? We have this categorization, right?
Yeah.
When there is a description of a miracle, is the intention of the text to say that that actually happened factually, or is it symbolic of some kind of a moral lesson or something that we can really understand? And miracles are ontologically, so in terms of like a nature of reality, they are the phenomenon that we have to confront this question of literal or metaphorical, because do we believe that these things actually happened or not necessarily? The scientists would say, well, this is not how the world works. This is not how we observe the laws of nature and everything that we've seen in recorded history since, let's call it, the last few hundred years. There's no such thing as a splitting of the sea, or there's no such thing as coming back from the dead, or there's no such thing as a human being walking on water. These can be dispelled. And so some people try to recover the religious text by saying, okay, but there's a lesson there, and maybe this is how people described it. And I know Maimonides in his book, The Guide of the Perplexed, was very keen on using this idea of linguistic symbolism as this is what usually when the text refers to miracles, sometimes it's just a figure of speech, or sometimes it's just an allegory, and there's a lesson behind it. It doesn't necessarily, and that he saw that as one of the keys to reconciling science and religion, is making use of it. I have heard you say, yes, but that is also a cop-out, because if there is an underlying pattern that describes reality, then it has to be true at both levels. So I like that. I like the courage of saying, well, if I am noticing a pattern of reality, then it must be true at both levels. And then some people will reply by saying, well, okay, then I guess I can't engage in religious thinking because that's not how I see the world working. And so personally, I'm very attracted to the symbolic, allegorical, because I believe the power of the stories and the lessons are so monumental that I almost don't need the miracles to be true in order to recover value from the text. But I wonder how you see it.
So the question is, why do you recognize the story of the miracle as having value? What's that, right? And so if miracles don't happen, or if we don't have a scope in our existence for what we call miracles, why do we have them? Like, why do we care about them? And why would someone like Maimonides or the Church Fathers, for all that, because the Church Fathers do exactly the same. They'll say the miracles are pregnant with meaning, right? They manifest meaning at a very high level, and they're in some ways cosmic, because what they're doing is showing you the structure of reality in a way that is more than everyday life, okay? And so it's important to understand that, like miracles, even the miracles described in the Bible or described in tradition, they're never just freak things that happen.
No, they're connected to a story.
They have to be connected to meaning, to a story, and they have to have certain form, right? And so the first thing you have to ask yourself is, what is it metaphorical to? So if a miracle is metaphorical,
the incommensurate and incomprehensible. So I experienced, or a group experienced something that was incommensurate and incomprehensible to it. It could not explain it in the language of the time. It could not explain it in terms of regular reality. Resorted to the language of miracle in order to encapsulate it in a story.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
And so a lot of we'd have to go through different miracles, but like a lot of the miracles, what they are is a conjoining of an event in the world with a reason for the event in a way that is more than ever. So you could say, is it possible for, let's say, waters to be split? Like, that's not absolutely impossible. Like, you could imagine some freak thing that would open up a sea, and I don't know what it is that happened, because the Bible doesn't care about describing mechanical causes. It just doesn't try, because that's not the point. And so let me take an example that's closer to us, right? It's if a rock falls off a cliff, and hits the ground, that's not a miracle. But if I'm being robbed by someone and I pray to God and then the rock falls off the cliff and hits the thief, that's a miracle, because it's the conjoining of an event in the world with a highest form of meaning. And so that is the way to kind of understand it, because the question is does the world first and foremost manifest through meaning? That's the question. I think I think a lot of the things that are happening now, a lot of the cog-sci stuff, a lot of this the problems of complexity and of understanding ontological levels of reality and how they come together, is showing us that in some ways there's no way around meaning. Like, meaning is necessary for you to even perceive the world around you. It's baked into the structure of reality.
So would you say that, so let's say in that example of the rock, okay, what makes it into a story, what makes it a miracle, is the attribution of divine intent. It's like, I prayed to God and then this happened. And so there is something in the structure of reality that intended for that thing to happen in response to my prayer. So it would still be embedded in a series of explanations by the human agent and a series of assumptions about the cosmos. I believe that the materialist scientist would reply with the language of coincidence. Or no, these are just coincidences or meaningless events that happened, and you formed an elaborate explanation around it. But if reality does manifest itself as meaningful, which is a very radical and very...
Well, let's take the materialist to his task and say, okay, but then you also think that everything that's meaningful is a coincidence. So why are you saying that? Why are you saying it's a coincidence? Because you also believe that when I drink milk in the morning, it's a coincidence, right? And so what makes it important for you to say that something that happens at a level of will beyond my own is a coincidence, when you think that all levels of meaning are coincidences? Yeah,
and this is where the materialist view has to contend. So it oscillates between the coincidence, or the language of luck, and the language of pure determinism. So there's the chemical and physical laws and it oscillates, right? And it becomes an explanatory style. It becomes like, okay, actually you have no free will.
But what I'm trying to point to is that it's miracles all the way down, folks. Like, it's just miracles all the way down. And so the idea that, how can I say this? The idea that you don't notice that every single time that you experience unity and multiplicity, that you experience meaning in a bunch of jumbled stuff, that insight, right? When something comes together, right? Everybody's had that experience. Like, there's all this multiplicity, there's all this stuff, and then it snaps together into one, and you're like, aha, I get it. That's a miracle, folks. Okay. And the problem with the materialists is that they think that aha, insight, materialist, moment of multiplicity coming into unity stops at the human level. That there is no corollary to that at higher levels of being.
Again, we are not part of the universe.
Yeah,
like, we are this separate thing floating in the air, and we're observing all these things, and we are invested with objective knowledge, but that is not a feature of the universe. This is something I have never understood, that philosophical position, that we are not part of.
Let me give you a little miracle. Magic exists, folks. Like, scientists are hilarious. They're like, oh, it's so ridiculous. Action at a distance is so ridiculous, right? How can you have action at a distance? So stupid. It's like, I do it every day. I ask my daughter to bring me a glass of water, and she brings me a glass of water. Please explain the mechanical causes from the bottom up to why she brought me a glass of water. Good luck with that. You're not going to get to it. The reason why she brought me a glass of water is related to meaning. It's related to something which is beyond the material causes. There's no underlying material causes for her to bring me the glass of water. You won't get to it. Impossible. I said, can you please bring me a glass of water? And then she takes the glass of water and she bring it. Magic, folks. Action at a distance.
Can you explain that with physical laws, right?
You can.